"Put that bucket down, Madison." "Why?" she snapped, gripping the silver handle. "Your father just humiliated me in front of 500 people." "He told the truth," Emily said, stepping between her and the wheelchair. Madison's eyes hardened. "Then you can take his punishment." Before anyone could move, she lifted the bucket and dumped freezing water and ice toward 76-year-old Harrison Whitmore. Emily threw herself over him, shielding his face as the water crashed across her back. Guests gasped. Phones rose into the air. Ethan Whitmore, the billionaire standing only a few feet away, stared at his fiancée as if he had never seen her before. But as Emily knelt beside Harrison, soaked and trembling, the old man grabbed her wrist. "Don't let her take the blue box," he whispered. What was inside that box, and why was a bank account carrying Emily's name connected to $2 million missing dollars? Stay with this story, because the woman being called a hero would soon be accused of robbing the very family she had just protected. And if you believe dignity should never depend on money or status, subscribe now. Stories like this remind us that the quietest person in the room may be the only one brave enough to act. 6 weeks earlier, Emily Carter had been nothing more than a nearly invisible housemaid in the Whitmore mansion outside Chicago. She was a 29-year-old single mother, working long hours to pay for her 8-year-old son Noah's heart treatments. Harrison Whitmore was the retired founder of an $8 billion company, but after a stroke left him in a wheelchair, he had become a forgotten man inside his own home. Only Emily treated him like he still mattered. Ethan, Harrison's son, was too busy running the family empire to notice what was happening. His elegant fiancée, Madison Reed, appeared perfect in public, but behind closed doors, she feared the old man knew exactly who she really was. And one evening, Harrison asked Emily to open a hidden safe. Inside, she found a financial document bearing her own signature. The problem was simple. Emily had never signed it. The forged signature should have been impossible, yet Emily Carter was staring directly at it. Her name appeared at the bottom of a payment authorization form inside Harrison Whitmore's private study. Above it was the name of a company she had never heard of, Carter Community Outreach, LLC. The document claimed that Emily had approved a transfer of $250,000 from the Whitmore Hope Foundation. For several seconds, she could only hear the slow ticking of the antique clock behind Harrison's desk. "That isn't my signature," she said. Harrison remained in his wheelchair beside the open safe. His right hand rested on the armrest, trembling slightly from the stroke that had weakened one side of his body. His voice was slow, but his eyes were alert. "I know." Emily turned the page over, hoping there might be some explanation on the back. There was nothing. She examined the date again. The transfer had been made 3 months earlier, on a Tuesday when she had spent the entire afternoon at the hospital with Noah. "How did they get my information?" "Your employment file contains everything they needed," Harrison answered. "Your full name, social security number, address, bank information, and copies of your identification." A cold weight settled in Emily's stomach. Only a small group of people could access staff records. The household manager could. Ethan's private office could. Madison could. Emily carefully placed the paper on the desk. "You think someone inside this house created a company in my name?" "I don't think it," Harrison said. "I've been trying to prove it." From the blue metal box, he removed several bank statements and arranged them across the desk. Each showed payments from the family foundation to consulting firms with polished names but no visible history. Bright Future Strategy, Lakeview Family Services, Carter Community Outreach. Together, the payments exceeded $2 million. Emily studied the pages. She had never handled documents involving that much money. Her monthly salary barely covered rent, food, and Noah's medical expenses. Seeing her name connected to hundreds of thousands of dollars made her feel as though she had walked into a crime scene and found her fingerprints waiting for her. "Why would anyone use me?" Harrison looked toward the closed door before answering. "Because people believe what fits the story they already expect." Emily did not understand. He tapped the document bearing her name. If money disappears from a billionaire's foundation and the evidence points toward his fiancée, people ask questions. But if it points toward a housekeeper struggling with medical bills, they think they already know the answer. The words hurt because they were true. Emily imagined police officers standing inside her apartment while Noah watched from the hallway. She imagined reporters discovering the cost of his heart treatments and turning a mother's fear into a motive. She imagined Ethan looking at these documents and deciding that Madison's accusations made more sense than Emily's denial. Does Ethan know? Harrison's expression changed. It was not anger, but disappointment, sharpened by years of silence. My son knows the foundation has lost money. He believes it is an accounting problem. And you haven't told him about this? I tried to tell him that the losses were deliberate. Madison convinced him I was confused. Emily glanced at the medication container on the corner of the desk. During the past several weeks, Harrison had appeared unusually tired after his afternoon pills. Some days his words became so slow that Madison answered questions for him before he could finish. What exactly do you believe Madison is doing? Harrison opened his mouth, but a sound in the hallway stopped him. Footsteps. Not the heavy, hurried steps of one of the security guards. These were measured and confident, approaching the study without hesitation. Harrison immediately closed the lid of the blue box. Put the bank statements back. Emily gathered the papers, but her hands were shaking. One slipped from her fingers and floated beneath the desk. The footsteps came closer. Harrison locked the box and pushed the key into Emily's palm. Keep it. I can't take this. You have to. If they search this room, that key cannot be found on me. The door handle moved. Emily shoved the final document into the box and slid it behind a row of old business ledgers inside the safe. There was no time to retrieve the page beneath the desk. The door opened. Madison Reed entered wearing a fitted white dress and a smile that looked effortless until her gaze moved from Harrison to Emily. What are you doing in here? Emily stood quickly. Mr. Whitmore asked me to help organize some papers. Madison remained in the doorway, blocking the only exit. At 9 o'clock at night, he couldn't sleep. Madison looked at Harrison. You should be resting. The doctor said too much stimulation isn't good for you. My doctor said no such thing, Harrison replied. The smile remained on Madison's face, but the warmth disappeared from it. She walked farther into the study and noticed the safe behind Harrison's chair. Its door was almost closed, but not completely. Emily felt the small key pressing into her palm. Madison's eyes lowered to Emily's clenched hand. What are you holding? Nothing. Then open your hand. Harrison rolled his chair forward, placing himself between them. She works for me, Madison. She does not need to empty her pockets because you ordered her to. This is Ethan's home now, Madison said, and very soon it will be mine. No, Harrison answered calmly. It is still my home. That may be the one detail you've forgotten. For one dangerous second, neither of them moved. Then Madison's phone rang. She looked at the screen, rejected the call, and returned her attention to Emily. You can leave. Emily walked toward the door, forcing herself not to run. As she passed Madison, she caught the faint scent of expensive perfume and heard a whisper meant only for her. Be careful which family secrets you touch. Emily continued down the hallway without responding. She did not open her hand until she reached the staff restroom and locked the door behind her. A small brass key rested against her skin. Back in the study, Madison waited until Harrison had been taken to his bedroom. Then she closed the door, crossed to the desk, and bent down. The missing bank statement was still lying beneath it. She picked it up, saw Emily Carter's forged signature, and slowly folded the page in half. By morning, the document would be gone, and before the week ended, Madison would make certain that every remaining piece of evidence pointed toward the same innocent woman. By sunrise, the missing bank statement was gone, but the small brass key was still hidden inside Emily Carter's coat pocket. She felt it every time she moved. It pressed against her hip while she packed Noah's lunch, reminded him to finish his milk, and checked the schedule for his cardiology appointment taped to the refrigerator. The key was no larger than her thumb, yet it seemed to carry the weight of the entire Whitmore estate. Mom, are you listening? Emily looked up. Noah was standing beside the kitchen table in his Cubs sweatshirt, holding a permission slip. I'm listening. You said that before I asked anything. Despite the fear tightening her chest, she smiled. What did you ask? Can I go on the museum trip Friday? Emily took the paper. The fee was $42. Not an impossible amount, but the kind of expense that forced her to rearrange everything else. Noah's prescription needed to be refilled. The electric bill was already 5 days late. His cardiology visit would require a day off work she could not afford. She signed the form anyway. "We'll figure it out." Noah studied her face with the uncomfortable awareness children sometimes possessed. "Did something happen at work?" "No." It came out too quickly. He lowered his voice. "Is Mr. Whitmore okay?" Emily paused. Noah had met Harrison only twice, but Harrison had sent him books, baseball cards, and a handwritten note after his last hospital visit. To Noah, the billionaire in the wheelchair was not a famous businessman. He was simply the old man who remembered his favorite team. "He's all right," Emily said. "I just need to make sure he stays that way." After dropping Noah at school, she drove north through Chicago traffic toward Lake Michigan. The farther she traveled from her neighborhood, the wider the streets became, and the quieter the houses appeared. By the time the Whitmore mansion came into view, she had made one decision. She would give Harrison the key and tell him she wanted no part in the investigation. Then she remembered the document bearing her name. Walking away would not erase it. If anything, silence would make the trap easier to close. Diane Miller met her in the service hallway. The longtime house manager was in her late 50s, with silver beginning to show in her dark hair, and an expression that always suggested she had been solving other people's problems since before breakfast. "You're late," Diane said. 7 minutes. Madison noticed. Madison notices when people breathe too loudly. Diane's eyes flicked toward the security camera above them. "Keep your voice down." Emily removed her coat and checked the pocket before hanging it in the staff room. The key was still there. "How is Mr. Whitmore?" "He refused breakfast." "That's not like him." "No, it isn't." Diane handed her a tray containing toast, fruit, tea, and a row of pills in a plastic cup. Emily stared at the medication. "Who prepared these?" "The private nurse." "Was she here this morning?" Diane hesitated. "Madison said she handled it." Emily looked up sharply. "Madison isn't a nurse. She said the medication had already been organized." "By whom?" "Emily." The warning in Diane's voice was clear. Questions were dangerous in this house, especially questions involving the future Mrs. Whitmore. Emily carried the tray upstairs. Harrison was sitting beside the windows in his private bedroom, still wearing the dark blue pajamas he had slept in. Sunlight crossed the rug but stopped short of his wheelchair. He looked older than he had the previous night. "Good morning," Emily said. "Is it?" His speech was heavier than usual. Emily placed the tray on the table. "You didn't eat." "I wasn't hungry." "You're always hungry when there's cinnamon toast." "Then perhaps I'm dying." "You're not dying before Noah gets the rematch you promised him." A faint smile touched Harrison's face. The previous month, Harrison and Noah had played checkers at the kitchen table. Harrison had lost 3 games in a row and insisted the boy had cheated. Noah had demanded evidence. Harrison had laughed so hard he nearly dropped the board. That afternoon had changed something in him. For hours afterward he had spoken more clearly and eaten a full dinner. Emily lifted the medication cup. "Did you already take anything today?" "1 pill. Madison brought it." "Which one?" "I don't know. Small and white. That describes half the pills in America." Emily set the cup down. "I'm calling your nurse." "No. Harrison, you were more alert last night." "I am alert now." "You almost fell asleep in the middle of that sentence." He looked toward the door. "Close it." Emily obeyed. When she returned, Harrison held out his hand. The key. She removed it from her pocket and placed it in his palm. "I shouldn't have taken it. You did exactly what I asked. Madison nearly caught me. 1 document was left under the desk." "I know." Her stomach tightened. "How?" "The safe was open this morning. The document was gone. Then she knows what we found. She already knew what was in the box. What she needed to know was whether I had shown it to anyone. And now she knows you showed me." "Yes." Harrison said it without panic, which frightened Emily more than panic would have. She moved closer. "We should call Ethan. My son is flying back from New York this afternoon." "Then we tell him tonight. And show him what?" "The other statements. Most of them are copies. Madison will call them incomplete or outdated. She will say I misunderstood what I saw. Then tell him about the company in my name." Harrison studied her carefully. Will you be ready when he asks why a woman struggling to pay medical bills suddenly appears on documents connected to $250,000? Emily felt the question like a slap, even though Harrison had asked it gently. I didn't take anything. I know that. Then Ethan should know it too. He should, but people do not always believe what they should. They believe what frightens them least. Emily walked to the window. Below, workers were constructing a temporary glass pavilion beside the mansion for the upcoming charity gala. Trucks delivered lighting equipment and white floral arches. Everything looked elegant, expensive, and carefully controlled. 6 weeks from now, wealthy guests would gather to raise money for families like hers. Meanwhile, someone was stealing from that same fund using her identity. How long have you suspected Madison? She asked. Since last winter. What happened? Harrison took a slow breath. The foundation approved a grant for a pediatric clinic in Detroit. $300,000. I called the director personally because I wanted to hear how the program was going. And they had never received the money. Emily turned. What did Madison say? That the payment had been delayed by a compliance review. 2 weeks later, the clinic received $50,000, and the records showed the full amount had been transferred. Where did the rest go? That is the question that made everyone suddenly concerned about my health. Harrison's first stroke had occurred shortly afterward. During his recovery, Ethan had assumed control of most family operations. Madison began attending foundation meetings as Ethan's representative. Harrison had returned home weaker, slower, and dependent on people who increasingly spoke around him instead of to him. At first, he continued, I thought the missing money was Derek Collins covering poor investments. Then companies began appearing in the records. Each one existed only long enough to receive a payment, and one of them was created in my name. Yes, why choose me? Harrison's face tightened. Because Madison knows your son is sick. The room seemed to lose its air. Emily stared at him. How does she know about Noah's medical bills? Your employment records include your insurance information. She also asked me several questions after I sent Noah those baseball cleats. Emily remembered the day the shoes appeared on the kitchen counter. She had come to work exhausted after spending the night comparing hospital payment plans. On the counter sat a new pair of cleats in Noah's size, along with a note written in Harrison's uneven hand. Every child should get to play the game he loves. Emily had carried the box into the sunroom and tried to return it. I can't accept this. Harrison had not looked up from his newspaper. Then leave them in the hallway. Perhaps a child with exactly the same shoe size will wander through. You cannot solve every problem with money. No, he had replied. But sometimes money can solve the problem of a boy needing shoes. Emily had finally accepted them, not because Harrison was rich, but because he gave without making her feel small. Madison had watched the entire exchange from the doorway. Now Emily understood what she had seen in Madison's expression that day. It had not been annoyance, it had been calculation. She chose me because she could build a motive, Emily said. A single mother, a sick child, limited income, and access to this house. Harrison nodded. If the theft is discovered, the evidence will tell a simple story. Simple stories are powerful, even when they are false. Emily pressed both hands against the back of a chair. We need copies of everything. They are no longer in the safe. Her head lifted. What? The blue box was removed before dawn. By Madison? Who else? Where would she take it? I don't know, but she missed something. Harrison pointed toward the old family photograph on the dresser. Emily picked it up. Behind the frame was a folded piece of paper containing a list of account numbers and transfer dates. I wrote them down before she came into the study, Harrison said. Emily read the entries. One payment was connected to Carter Community Outreach. Another listed a firm named Reed Strategic Image Group. Reed, Emily said. Her last name, hidden behind 2 holding companies. But yes, why would she be careless enough to use her own name? Because arrogance often looks exactly like carelessness. A knock sounded at the door. Before Emily could hide the paper, Ethan Whitmore entered. He wore a navy suit without a tie and carried his phone in one hand. He looked tired from travel, but his expression softened when he saw his father. Dad, Harrison folded the paper beneath his blanket. You're back early. My meeting ended sooner than expected. Ethan leaned down and embraced him. Harrison lifted one arm slowly, returning the gesture. For a moment, Emily saw the relationship they must once have shared, before the stroke. Before the company became Ethan's entire life. Before Madison began deciding which conversations mattered. Then Ethan noticed the untouched breakfast. "You haven't eaten?" "I was about to." Ethan turned toward Emily. "Is he feeling sick?" "He seems more tired than usual. I'd like his nurse to review his medication." Madison said the nurse already approved everything. Madison gave him a pill this morning without the nurse present. Ethan's face changed slightly. "Are you sure?" Harrison answered before Emily could. "I was there, son. I'm sure. I'll ask Madison." He said it as though the problem would end once she explained it. Emily glanced at Harrison. His expression showed no surprise. Ethan's phone rang. He rejected the call, but immediately received another. "I'm sorry. The board is waiting for me downstairs." "You just arrived," Harrison said. "I know. I'll come back tonight." "You said that last week." Ethan stopped. The disappointment in Harrison's voice was quiet, but impossible to miss. "I had to return to New York." "You always have to return somewhere." Ethan slipped the phone into his pocket. "I'm trying to keep the company stable. I built that company so you would have a life, not so it would replace one." Neither man spoke. Emily stepped toward the breakfast tray, giving them the privacy of pretending she was not listening. Ethan finally pulled a chair closer. "I have 10 minutes. Harrison looked at him for a long moment. "Keep them. Your board probably needs them more." "Dad, go." Ethan stood slowly. Before leaving, he looked at Emily. "Make sure he eats something." She wanted to tell him Harrison needed more than breakfast. He needed a son who could sit in the room without watching the clock. But she was an employee, and employees in wealthy homes learned quickly that truth was often treated like disrespect. "I will," she said. After Ethan left, Harrison stared at the closed door. He was not always like this. He still loves you. Love without attention can become neglect before anyone notices. Emily uncovered the paper. "We need to find the original records before Madison destroys them." Harrison looked toward the pill cup again. "And we need to know what she has been giving me." Emily contacted the private nurse, who confirmed she had not prepared Harrison's morning medication. She promised to come that afternoon, and told Emily not to give him anything else until she arrived. When Emily confronted Diane in the pantry, the older woman avoided her eyes. "Has Madison handled his pills before?" "I don't know. That isn't what I asked." Diane began arranging glasses that were already perfectly aligned. "People who ask too many questions do not stay employed here. Someone may be hurting him." Diane's hands stopped. "I have worked for Harrison Whitmore for 21 years. Do not suggest I don't care what happens to him." "Then help me." Diane looked toward the hallway. "I have a pension, a mortgage, a daughter going through a divorce with 2 children. Madison knows all of it. So you're afraid of her. I am careful around her." "That isn't the same thing. In houses like this, Emily, it often is." Before Emily could respond, Madison entered. She wore a cream-colored suit and held a tablet displaying the gala seating plan. "There you are," she said. "Ethan told me you frightened him with some story about Harrison's medication. I called his nurse. She didn't prepare the pill you gave him." Madison smiled. "I gave him what was already on the tray. There was no tray when I arrived. Are you accusing me of something?" "I'm asking what you gave him." Diane moved quietly toward the door, but Madison stopped her. "Stay." Then she turned back to Emily. "You appear to be confused about your position in this house. My position is to help care for Mr. Whitmore. Your position is to follow instructions, not when those instructions could hurt him." Madison stepped closer. "You have worked here for 14 months. I have been part of this family for 2 years. You're not part of it yet." The words escaped before Emily could stop them. Diane closed her eyes briefly. Madison's smile disappeared. Perhaps the agency sent the wrong person. Perhaps. For several seconds, only the refrigerator motor could be heard. Then Ethan called Madison's name from the hallway. Her expression transformed instantly. Her shoulders relaxed. Warmth returned to her voice. "I'm in here." She walked out to meet him, leaving Emily and Diane behind. Diane released a breath. "You need to be more careful. If no one says anything, she keeps getting away with it. You think courage protects people. No, but silence protects her. That evening, Emily remained at the mansion past the end of her shift because Harrison's nurse was delayed. She helped him eat soup, changed the blanket over his legs, and read through Noah's latest science project, while Harrison offered unhelpful advice about building a volcano large enough to frighten the neighbors. For nearly an hour, the house felt normal. Then Harrison fell asleep suddenly, in the middle of a sentence. Emily checked his breathing and pulse. Both were steady, but the speed of the change frightened her. 10 minutes earlier, he had been laughing. Now she could barely wake him. She called the nurse again. While waiting, Emily walked downstairs to find Ethan. Voices came from his office. Madison was speaking. "You need to stop letting him make financial decisions. He founded the foundation," Ethan replied. "He is recovering from a stroke. His judgment is not reliable. My father's mind is fine." "Then why is he hiding documents with a housekeeper?" Emily froze outside the door. Ethan's voice lowered. "What documents? I found the safe open last night." Emily was inside his study after 9. She lied about what she was doing. She said she was organizing papers. "And you believed her?" A pause followed. Madison continued more softly. "Ethan, I know you care about your father. But caring about him means accepting what is happening. He's becoming paranoid. He thinks people are stealing from him. He barely recognizes reality some days." "That's not true." "Not yet. But what happens when he accuses a donor during the gala? What happens when he signs something he doesn't understand?" Emily moved closer to the door. Madison's next words were calm and deliberate. "We need a physician to declare him mentally incompetent before the wedding. Once you have full legal control, we can protect the company, the foundation, and Harrison from himself." Silence filled the office. Emily waited for Ethan to refuse. He did not. Finally, he said, "I need time to think." Emily stepped backward, her heart pounding. Behind the closed door, Madison answered with quiet satisfaction. "We don't have time. Your father is already telling secrets to the wrong woman." Emily returned upstairs before either of them discovered her. Harrison was awake when she entered, his face pale but alert. She closed the door and crossed the room. "You were right," she whispered. "About what?" "Madison doesn't only want control of the foundation." Emily looked toward the hallway, terrified that someone might already be listening. "She wants Ethan to have you declared mentally incompetent before the wedding." Harrison did not appear shocked. Instead, he reached beneath his blanket and removed the handwritten list of stolen accounts. "Then we have less time than I thought." He folded the paper and placed it in Emily's hand. "Tomorrow, we find the original records. And if Madison finds them first?" Harrison looked directly at her. "Then by the time my son understands the truth, you may already be the woman blamed for stealing $2 million. By the next morning, Emily understood that finding the original records was no longer enough. She and Harrison also had to stay ahead of the woman who already knew they were looking. Madison Reed did not confront them again. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she smiled through breakfast, kissed Ethan before he left for the office, and asked Harrison whether he had slept well. Her concern sounded convincing enough to fool anyone who had not watched her face when she thought no one was looking. Emily watched from beside the dining room door as Madison placed a fresh cup of pills near Harrison's hand. "I already spoke to the nurse," Emily said. "She wants to review everything before he takes another dose." Madison turned slowly. "Were you invited into this conversation?" "Harrison's health is part of my job." "Not anymore." Ethan lowered his coffee. "What does that mean?" Madison smiled at him. "It means Emily has become too personally involved. She questions medical instructions, enters private offices, and encourages your father's suspicions." Harrison pushed the pills away. "She is the only person in this house asking the right questions." Ethan looked between them. "Dad, what suspicions?" Harrison opened his mouth, but Madison touched Ethan's arm. "You have the board meeting in 20 minutes. The distraction worked." Ethan checked his watch. "We'll discuss this tonight." Emily almost laughed at the familiar promise. After he left, Madison collected the pills and walked past Emily without another word, yet the look she gave her carried a clear message. This was no longer a disagreement. It was a warning. Later that morning, Madison locked herself inside the guest office and called Derek Collins. Derek had managed the foundation's financial systems for 5 years. He was skilled, nervous, and deeply in debt. Madison had discovered both weaknesses long before she asked him to create the first falls company. Harrison found the transfer records, she said. On the other end, Derek went silent. How much did he see? Enough. We should stop moving money. We stop now, and every unusual transaction points directly to us. What do you want me to do? Move another $75,000 into the Carter account. Derek inhaled sharply. That will make it worse. That is the point. When the investigation begins, Emily Carter needs to look guilty enough that nobody keeps searching. You said she was just a housekeeper. She was. Now she's a problem. Madison ordered him to create invoices showing that Emily had received consulting fees for community outreach work. She also demanded forged emails between Emily and the foundation's accounting department. Derek hesitated. This is identity theft. So was the first transfer. You stopped caring when your debts disappeared. Before ending the call, Madison added one final instruction. Delete Harrison's access to the archived server. That afternoon, Emily found Diane standing near the medication room with a box of clean towels in her arms. You were here late last night, Emily said. Diane kept walking. So were you. Did you see Madison enter this room? The older woman stopped. For several seconds, she stared at the closed door. I saw someone. Who? I did not see her face. But you recognized her. Diane's grip tightened around the towels. Emily, some truths cost more than people can afford. So does silence. Diane looked down the hallway before answering in a whisper. She came in after midnight. She stayed less than 5 minutes. This morning, one bottle was in the wrong place. Which bottle? The sedative Harrison takes only when he cannot sleep. Emily felt a chill. He has been getting tired every afternoon. I know. Then tell Ethan. Diane shook her head. Not without proof. Emily understood her fear. But understanding did not make it less dangerous. By evening, Ethan had begun asking questions of his own, but not the ones Emily had hoped for. He found her in Harrison's study, replacing books on a shelf. Why are you in here again? Harrison asked for an old foundation report. Madison says you've been going through private financial documents. Emily faced him. Madison says many things when you are not in the room. That is not an answer. No, it isn't. Ethan stepped closer. My father is vulnerable. He trusts people quickly now. Harrison does not trust anyone quickly. You call him Harrison. He asked me to. The familiarity clearly bothered Ethan. Emily could see Madison's story working inside his mind. The poor employee, the lonely old man, the missing money. Are you accepting gifts from him? Ethan asked. A pair of baseball cleats for my son. Anything else? No. Has he promised you money? Emily's face hardened. I care for your father because he treats me like a human being. If that sounds suspicious to you, perhaps the problem is not my behavior. Ethan flinched, but his voice remained controlled. Until this is resolved, stay out of his financial affairs. Before Emily could reply, Harrison entered in his wheelchair. You are asking the wrong person to stay out of them. Ethan looked at his father. Then tell me what is going on. Harrison studied him, as if deciding whether his son was finally ready to listen. Before he could speak, Madison appeared at the door with a stack of ivory invitations. The gala announcement is ready, she said brightly. Nearly 500 guests have confirmed. The moment was gone. She placed an invitation on Harrison's desk. The Whitmore Hope Gala would raise money for children with serious heart conditions. Madison's photograph appeared beside Ethan's in the printed program as honorary chair. Harrison read it silently. My wife founded this organization, he said, and we are honoring her legacy, Madison replied. By putting your face on it? Her smile tightened. Ethan interrupted. Dad, please, this event matters. Yes, Harrison said, more than you understand. That night, after the house became quiet, Harrison asked Emily to wheel him into the old library. From inside a hollow book, he removed a sealed envelope. My attorney prepared this, he said. It contains account numbers, names, and instructions for opening an independent investigation. Give it to Ethan now. He is not ready. And if something happens before he is, Harrison placed the envelope in her hands. "If I cannot finish my speech at the gala, open this in front of him. Do not give it to anyone else." Emily stared at the seal. "What are you planning to say?" "The truth." Across the mansion, Madison stood in front of Ethan's office fireplace, watching Derek's forged emails appear on her tablet. Every message carried Emily Carter's name. Every payment led to her invented company. And by the night of the gala, Madison intended to make sure the woman protecting Harrison looked like the one person who had betrayed him. Emily slipped the sealed envelope beneath her uniform. She did not yet know that before Harrison could complete his speech, Madison would force the entire ballroom to choose which woman they believed. By the time the Whitmore Hope Gala began, Emily had memorized the weight of Harrison's sealed envelope beneath her uniform. It rested against her ribs like a warning. Before the night ended, someone inside the mansion would either be exposed or successfully framed. The Whitmore estate had been transformed. A glass pavilion stretched toward Lake Michigan beneath hundreds of white lights. Ivory roses framed the marble entrance. A string ensemble played near the staircase, and nearly 500 guests filled the rooms. Hospital directors, politicians, investors, celebrities, and donors whose names appeared on buildings across Chicago. Madison stood at the center of it all in an ivory silk gown, greeting each camera with the same perfect smile. Emily remained upstairs with Harrison. His tuxedo had been altered around his wheelchair, and the blue tie at his neck had belonged to his late wife's favorite dress. "You look handsome," Emily said. "I look expensive." She smiled, but his shaking hands worried her. "Are you sure you want to speak tonight? If I wait until I feel ready, Madison will be married to my son, and the foundation will be empty. Your attorney can expose the transfers. He can prove where the money went. He cannot make Ethan understand who he is about to marry." Harrison touched the folded remarks inside his jacket. "If I lose my place, bring me back to the paragraph about the clinic. And if you cannot finish?" His eyes lowered toward the envelope hidden beneath her uniform. "Then you know what to do." Diane entered with 2 event workers. "Madison wants Mr. Whitmore downstairs." Emily asked where he would be seated. Diane hesitated, behind the West floral display. Harrison gave a dry laugh. "Close enough to hear my own celebration, but far enough away that no one has to see me." "I argued," Diane said. "And lost." Emily moved behind his chair. "We'll sit there until the program begins. After that, I'm taking him to the front." Diane's eyes widened, but this time she did not tell Emily to be careful. She simply stepped aside. Downstairs, Ethan was greeting donors near the entrance. His face softened when he saw his father. "Dad, you came. It is my foundation. I wasn't sure you felt strong enough. I feel stronger than some people hoped." Madison approached with a photographer. "We need one family picture before dinner." She positioned herself beside Ethan and leaned toward Harrison without touching him. Emily started to move away, but Harrison caught her hand. "Stay." Madison's smile tightened. "She's staff. She is helping me sit upright. There are nurses for that. Tonight, I want Emily." The photographer took the picture before Madison could object. For the first time, Emily appeared in an official Whitmore family photograph, not at the center, but no longer entirely outside the frame. The evening continued with music, speeches, and carefully staged generosity. A video showed families sleeping in hospital chairs, missing paychecks, and choosing between rent and medical treatment. One mother described selling her car to pay for her daughter's surgery. Emily remembered taking 3 buses to Noah's first cardiology appointment after Tomas left with their car. Around her, wealthy donors wiped their eyes and raised bidding paddles. Madison accepted praise for organizing the event. "She understands suffering when a camera is nearby," Harrison murmured. "Save your strength." "I have been saving it for 8 months." At the head table, Ethan rose to give the main address. He spoke about his mother, Margaret Whitmore, and how she had created the foundation after meeting parents who could not afford their child's heart surgery. My mother believed no family should have to choose between saving a child and keeping a roof over that child's head, he said. Tonight, we have raised more than $4 million. Applause filled the pavilion. Then Ethan praised Madison. None of tonight would have been possible without the woman I will soon call my wife. The audience stood as Madison joined him on stage. Harrison gripped the arm of his wheelchair. Take me forward. Emily guided him between the tables. By the time they reached the stage, Madison had begun speaking about transparency, compassion, and protecting vulnerable families. Harrison raised one trembling hand. May the founder of this foundation say a few words. Madison stopped. Ethan looked down at him. Of course. A microphone was brought to Harrison. Emily remained behind his chair. My wife did not begin this foundation because she wanted her name on a wall, Harrison said. She began it after meeting a father who slept in his truck outside a children's hospital because he could not afford a motel. His speech was slow, but the room had become quiet enough to hear every breath. She believed charity meant protecting people with no influence, no connections, and no way to repay you. He paused. 8 months ago, $300,000 intended for a pediatric clinic never reached that clinic. A murmur moved through the guests. Ethan's expression changed. Dad, that was not an isolated mistake. More than $2 million has been redirected through companies with no employees, no offices, and no legitimate services. Madison stepped toward the microphone. Harrison is tired. This is not the place for an accounting discussion. It became the place when you used my wife's name to raise money tonight. Gasps came from the front tables. Ethan moved between them. Dad, are you accusing someone? I am demanding an independent investigation before another dollar leaves this room. Madison gave a short, empty laugh. You see what is happening. He has been confused for months. Staff members have been feeding his paranoia. Her gaze moved to Emily. Harrison tightened his hand around the microphone. My body failed me, Madison. My judgment did not. You barely know what day it is. I know this is the last day you will use my wife's foundation without answering questions. The cameras turned toward Madison. For the first time that evening, her face was not prepared for them. Ethan touched her arm. Let's discuss this privately. She pulled away. No, he wanted this public. He has hated me since the day we met. He sits in that chair judging me, waiting for a chance to turn you against me. Harrison's expression held no triumph. I judged you by how you treated people who could do nothing for you. Several employees lowered their eyes. You call workers by their uniforms because their names do not matter to you. You move me out of photographs because age makes you uncomfortable. And you speak of compassion only when someone is recording. Madison saw the phones raised across the room. She saw donors whispering and Ethan watching her without immediately defending her. Then her eyes landed on the large silver champagne bucket beside the stage. It was packed with ice and water to keep the bottles cold. Emily saw the decision forming before anyone else. Madison, she warned. Madison lifted the bucket with both hands. Ethan stepped forward. Put it down. Your father just destroyed me in front of everyone. He asked for an investigation. He called me a fraud. Harrison remained still. If the truth destroys you, perhaps the truth is not the problem. Whatever restraint Madison had left disappeared. She crossed the short distance and tilted the bucket. Emily moved without thinking. Freezing water struck her shoulder as she threw herself over Harrison. Ice hit her back and scattered across the marble floor. The cold stole her breath, but she kept one arm around Harrison's head and the other across his chest. The ballroom erupted. Guests shouted. Chairs scraped backward. A glass shattered. Dozens of phones captured the silver bucket falling from Madison's hands. Emily felt Harrison trembling beneath her. Stay still, she whispered. I've got you. Water streamed from her hair into her eyes. Harrison gripped her wrist. Emily, I'm here. His voice was barely audible. The blue box. Don't let her take it. Ethan dropped to his knees beside them. Dad, are you hurt? Harrison looked at his son, and then at Emily shielding him. "I am protected." The words struck Ethan harder than anger. He turned toward Madison. She stood several feet away, breathing heavily, her expression caught between rage and disbelief. "He provoked me," she said. "You all heard him." Nobody answered. Emily slowly lifted herself and checked Harrison's forehead, neck, and hands. His tuxedo was wet along one side, but she had absorbed most of the water. Madison noticed the cameras and seemed to understand what the scene looked like. "This is being twisted," she said. "She planned it." Emily stared at her. "You picked up the bucket. She knew he would embarrass me. You attacked a man in a wheelchair. And you were waiting to play the hero." Ethan stood. "That's enough." But Madison pointed at Emily. "Ask her why she has been hiding financial records. Ask why money from the foundation was transferred into a company carrying her name." The mood in the room shifted. Outrage gave way to confusion. Emily felt the sealed envelope beneath her soaked uniform. Before she could reach for it, 2 security officers hurried toward the stage with the foundation's finance director. "Mr. Whitmore," the director said to Ethan, "we found something in the staff locker area." One officer held a clear evidence bag. Inside were printed transfer records, invoices, and a flash drive. Every document displayed the name Carter Community Outreach LLC. Emily stared at the bag. Those papers had never been in her locker. Madison stepped closer. Where were they found? In Emily Carter's assigned locker. A murmur spread through the guests. Emily reached beneath her uniform for Harrison's envelope. It was gone. She searched the inner pocket again and found only wet fabric. Somewhere between the family photograph, the crowded ballroom, and the moment she covered Harrison, someone had taken it. Madison's eyes followed Emily's hand. A faint smile touched her mouth. Harrison tried to speak, but his breathing had become uneven. Diane rushed forward. "He needs a doctor." Ethan looked from his father to the evidence bag, then to Emily, standing soaked beside the wheelchair. The woman before him had just placed her body between Harrison and harm, yet her name appeared on every document tied to the stolen money. "Emily," he said, his voice low enough that the silence carried it through the ballroom. "Tell me the truth." She met his eyes. "I have been trying to." His gaze returned to the forged invoices. Then he asked the question Madison had spent weeks preparing him to ask. "Did you take the money?" The question remained suspended between Ethan and Emily, while nearly 500 people waited for her answer. "No," Emily said. "I did not take that money." Her voice was steady, but the cold water dripping from her uniform made her hands shake. Behind her, Harrison struggled to breathe evenly, while Diane wrapped a dry tablecloth around his shoulders. Madison pointed toward the evidence bag. "Then explain why those documents were hidden in your locker. I have never seen them before. And the company using your name. It was created without my permission." Madison gave a bitter laugh. "How convenient." Emily looked at Ethan. "Harrison found the transfers weeks ago. Someone used information from my employment file to open that account. He was trying to prove it." Ethan's face tightened. "Why didn't either of you tell me?" "We tried," Harrison said. The words came out weak and uneven. Emily continued before Madison could interrupt. "Every time he tried to speak, someone called him confused. Every time I asked questions, Madison threatened my job." "That is a lie," Madison snapped. Emily reached beneath her soaked uniform again, searching for the sealed envelope Harrison had given her. The pocket was empty. Her heart sank. "There was an envelope," she said. "Harrison's attorney prepared it. It contained account numbers and instructions for an independent investigation." Madison folded her arms. "And where is this envelope?" "It was inside my uniform." "You mean the uniform you just soaked in front of every camera in the room?" Emily stared at her. "You took it." Madison stepped back as though offended. "You are accusing me because your evidence does not exist." Harrison tried to lift himself in the wheelchair. "She had it," he said. "I gave it to her." Madison turned to the guests. "You see what she has done to him? She has spent months feeding his suspicions, isolating him, convincing him that his own family is stealing from him." "I never isolated him," Emily said. You did. The finance director handed Ethan another sheet from the evidence bag. This invoice has Emily's electronic signature. It authorizes a $75,000 consulting payment from 3 days ago. Emily read the date. 3 days earlier, she had been sitting beside Noah during a cardiology test at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. There were security cameras, appointment records, and nurses who could confirm it. I was not here that day. You didn't need to be here to send an email, Madison replied. Ethan studied the invoice. The evidence had been designed to survive an immediate denial. Each document supported the next. Every false payment led to the same company. Every signature pointed to the same woman. But the image of Emily throwing herself over Harrison was still in front of him. A thief might risk prison for money. Would she also risk injury to protect the man she was supposedly exploiting? Sirens sounded outside the pavilion. Madison had called the police before anyone else knew she had done it. 2 officers entered with the head of estate security. Cameras turned toward them immediately. Madison walked forward. Those documents were found in her locker. More than $2 million is missing from the foundation. One officer looked at Ethan. Do you want to file a complaint? Emily held her breath. The entire room seemed to wait for the billionaire to decide which woman would leave as the victim and which one would leave as the criminal. Ethan looked at Harrison. His father's skin had turned pale, and his right hand was trembling violently. Not tonight, Ethan said. Madison stared at him. What? My father needs medical attention. The financial records need to be reviewed by outside counsel before anyone makes an accusation. You already have the evidence. We have papers found in a locker during an event controlled by hundreds of staff members. Madison's expression hardened. You are letting her manipulate you. I said not tonight. It was not a declaration of Emily's innocence. Paramedics arrived and began examining Harrison. His blood pressure was dangerously high, and his heart rhythm was irregular. They recommended taking him to the hospital. Emily moved toward the wheelchair, but Madison blocked her. You are finished here. Harrison needs someone he trusts. He has his son. Emily looked at Ethan. For the first time that evening, he did not meet her eyes. Go home, he said quietly. Until the investigation is complete, you cannot return to the estate. The words hurt more than the freezing water had. She had not expected gratitude. She had not expected money or public praise. But after seeing her protect his father, Ethan still believed she might have robbed him. Harrison reached for her hand as the paramedics prepared to move him. Emily. She stepped around Madison and bent beside him. I'm here. Do not believe what they say about you. His voice was barely more than air. Emily squeezed his fingers. Save your strength. His eyes moved toward Madison. She has the envelope. Madison heard him. He doesn't know what he's saying. Harrison tightened his grip on Emily's hand with what little strength remained. I know exactly what I am saying. The paramedics wheeled him away. Emily remained on the wet marble floor for several seconds after he disappeared through the doors. Then Diane returned with Emily's coat. I'm sorry, she whispered. Emily searched the pocket. The brass key was gone. Someone had entered the staff room while the gala was underway. Madison had not simply planted evidence in Emily's locker. She had taken the key to the blue box and stolen the envelope that could have cleared her name. Outside, reporters crowded the driveway. Camera lights struck Emily's face as soon as she stepped through the entrance. Emily, did you steal from the Whitmore Foundation? Were you having a private financial relationship with Harrison Whitmore? Did you stage the incident with the bucket? Are you being investigated for fraud? Emily said nothing. A staff driver took her home through a side exit, but one news vehicle followed for almost 10 miles before turning away. When Emily reached her apartment, it was after midnight. Her mother, Linda, had fallen asleep on the couch while waiting for her. Noah was still awake in his bedroom, wearing his baseball pajamas and holding his phone. He had seen the video. Mom? Emily stood in the doorway, still wearing the damp uniform beneath her coat. Noah looked frightened. Why did that woman throw ice at you? She wasn't aiming at me. I know. She was trying to hurt Mr. Whitmore. Emily sat beside him. He's at the hospital now, but the doctors are taking care of him. Noah's eyes filled. Are you hurt? I'm cold, that's all. He looked at the video paused on his phone. The image showed Emily bent over Harrison's wheelchair while ice scattered around them. People online say you're a hero, Emily looked away. Other headlines were already appearing beneath the clip. Maid shields elderly billionaire at charity gala. Foundation worker linked to missing millions. Hero or thief? Questions surround viral Whitmore video. "I'm not a hero," she said. "I helped someone who needed help." Noah leaned against her. "That sounds like what heroes do." Emily closed her eyes and held him. By 6 the next morning, the video had more than 12 million views. The footage had been recorded from several angles. One showed Madison lifting the bucket. Another captured Emily, moving before anyone else. A third focused on Ethan's face as he watched the woman he planned to marry attack his father. The most shared version ended with Harrison whispering that Emily had protected him. But within hours, another edited clip began spreading. It showed the documents being removed from Emily's locker, followed by Madison claiming Emily had manipulated an elderly man. The internet turned the story into a trial. Millions of strangers argued over Emily's character without knowing anything about her. Some praised her courage. Others searched public records, found Noah's medical history through an old fundraising page, and claimed the bills gave her a motive to steal. By 8 o'clock, reporters were outside her apartment building. By 9, the agency that employed her called. "We are placing you on unpaid suspension," the manager said. "For how long?" "Until the financial investigation is complete." "I did nothing wrong." "I understand, but the Whitmore family is one of our largest clients." "That is not an answer. It is the only one I can give you." Emily ended the call and stared at the calendar on the wall. Noah's prescription refill was due in 5 days. The museum trip fee had already been charged. Without her salary, she could not cover rent and the next hospital payment. Her phone rang again. This time, the caller identified himself as the Whitmore family's director of public relations. "We need to coordinate your statement." "My statement?" "The public is sympathetic to you right now. If we handle this carefully, we can avoid further damage." "Damage to whom?" "To everyone involved." Emily understood immediately. They did not want the truth. They wanted language that protected the family name. "What do you want me to say?" "That the incident was emotional, that you do not believe Madison intended to harm Mr. Whitmore, and that you trust the family's internal review." Emily almost laughed. She lifted a bucket over a disabled man. "We are not asking you to lie. You are asking me to describe the truth in a way that no longer sounds true." The man paused. "Emily, it would be wise not to speak to the press without legal guidance. I didn't protect Harrison for your public image. I never said you did. You didn't have to." She ended the call. Across the city, Ethan sat alone in his father's hospital room. Harrison was asleep under light sedation. The monitors beside the bed measured every beat of his heart, each sound reminding Ethan how close the night had come to ending differently. Madison had remained at the estate, supposedly dealing with lawyers and event staff. Ethan had not asked her to come to the hospital. He opened the gala video on his phone again. He had already watched it more than 20 times. This time, he ignored the bucket and focused on what happened afterward. Madison pointed at Emily's locker before the finance director finished explaining where the documents had been found. She knew what the bag contained before it was opened. Ethan replayed the moment. The security officer entered. Madison looked at the evidence bag. Then she said, "Ask her why she hid financial records." No one had yet said the documents were financial records. Ethan sat forward. He played another angle. Just before Emily reached for the missing envelope, Madison's eyes dropped toward Emily's uniform pocket. Then came the smallest movement. Madison stepping behind Emily during the confusion as paramedics approached Harrison. It was not proof, but it was enough to create doubt. Ethan called the head of security. "Who searched Emily's locker?" One of Madison's event assistants reported seeing confidential documents inside. "Which assistant?" "I'm checking." "Who authorized the search?" There was a pause. "Ms. Reed." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Was the locker area recorded?" "The camera was offline." "Why?" "We assumed it was a technical failure." "When did it go offline?" "Approximately 40 minutes before the documents were found." Ethan ended the call and looked at his sleeping father. For months, Harrison had warned him that something was wrong. Ethan had dismissed the warnings because accepting them would have forced him to question the woman he loved. He had called his father tired, emotional, and suspicious. He had called Madison organized, protective, and dependable. Now his father was in a hospital bed, Emily had lost her job, and the woman who claimed to protect the family had known exactly where false evidence would be found. At the estate, Madison stood in Harrison's study with the stolen envelope open on the desk. Inside were copies of account numbers, Derek Collins's name, and instructions addressed to Harrison's attorney. She fed the papers into the fireplace one page at a time. The final sheet included a handwritten note. "If anything happens to me, trust Emily Carter. She has nothing to gain from the truth." Madison watched the sentence turn black and curl into ash. Then she opened the blue metal box. It was nearly empty. Harrison had removed more evidence than she expected. Someone else had copies. Back in her apartment, Emily spent the afternoon ignoring calls. Noah sat at the kitchen table doing homework, while Linda made soup and pretended not to notice the reporters outside. At 4:13, Emily's phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. "I saw Madison enter the medication room after midnight." Emily read it twice. A second message appeared. "She moved Harrison's sedatives. I should have spoken sooner." Emily typed one question. "Who is this?" The reply arrived several seconds later. "Diane. Do not call me." She checks the staff phone records. Emily moved into the bedroom and closed the door. "Will you tell Ethan?" Diane's answer came slowly. "I am afraid." Emily stared at the screen. "Harrison is in the hospital. I lost my job. My name is connected to stolen money. Silence is no longer protecting anyone except Madison." There was no response. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Emily thought Diane had changed her mind. Finally, the phone vibrated again. "There is something else." Madison knew the hallway camera would be off before the gala. She ordered maintenance to disable it. "I kept the work request." Emily's pulse quickened. "Send me a copy." Before Diane could answer, an incoming call replaced the message screen. It was Ethan. Emily let it ring twice before answering. "What do you want?" "My father is awake. Is he all right?" "The doctors say he is stable, but he keeps trying to tell me something." Emily stood. "What did he say?" "At first I couldn't understand him. Then he repeated it 3 times. Ethan's voice changed, losing the control he used in boardrooms and interviews. He said, "Find the blue box." The words, "find the blue box," changed the direction of everything. Emily tightened her grip on the phone. "Ethan, the box was kept inside Harrison's private safe." "I'm at the hospital. Can you tell me how to open it?" "Madison took the key from my coat during the gala." There was a long silence. "You're certain?" "The key disappeared at the same time the documents appeared in my locker." Ethan looked through the glass wall of Harrison's hospital room. His father was awake, but exhausted, surrounded by monitors and intravenous lines. For months, Ethan had allowed other people to describe Harrison as confused. Yet the old man had remembered the box, the evidence, and the danger, even after a medical emergency. "I'm going back to the estate," Ethan said. "Don't tell Madison what you're looking for." Emily heard herself giving orders to the man who had suspended her only hours earlier, but Ethan did not object. "I won't." When he returned to the mansion, the celebration had been replaced by an unnatural silence. Event workers removed ruined flowers, while attorneys occupied the downstairs library. Madison stood in Ethan's office, wearing a robe over the ivory gown she had never changed out of. "You left the hospital without telling me," she said. "My father is stable." "Thank God." Her relief sounded rehearsed. Ethan walked toward the hallway. "Where are you going?" "To his study." Madison's posture changed. "Why?" "I need one of his insurance files. I can ask Diane to find it. I know where it is." He continued upstairs without looking back. The door to Harrison's study was unlocked. Inside, the safe stood closed behind the desk. Ethan entered the code he had known since childhood, the date his parents opened their first warehouse. The safe was empty except for several old property deeds. There was no blue box. He searched the shelves, desk drawers, and cabinets. Nothing. Madison appeared in the doorway. "Did you find what you needed?" Ethan kept his back to her. "No. Maybe your father moved it." "Moved what?" She paused. The insurance file. Ethan turned. I didn't say it was missing. Madison recovered quickly. You opened the safe. I assumed. He studied her face. Did you enter this room last night? No. Did you take anything from Emily's coat? Her eyes narrowed. Is that what she told you? I asked a simple question, and I gave you an answer. No. Ethan moved closer. My father keeps asking for a blue box. For the briefest moment, fear crossed her face. Then she laughed. Harrison keeps old photographs and letters in dozens of boxes. You know that. I didn't say what was inside this one. You told me it was connected to the missing money. No, I didn't. Madison went still. Ethan saw the mistake settle between them. She tried to step around it. You must have mentioned it at the hospital. I came directly here. Her voice hardened. Are you interrogating me? I'm trying to understand why my fiancée knew the contents of a box she claims she has never seen. I organized this house while you were traveling. I know where things are. Apparently not. The box is gone. Madison crossed her arms. Then ask your heroic housekeeper. She was the one secretly meeting with your father. Ethan heard the cruelty hidden beneath the words. Before the gala, he might have accepted the suggestion. Now it sounded like an answer prepared too early. My father said Emily is innocent. Your father also believes I am stealing from him. Are you? Madison's face changed completely. You cannot be serious. I asked if you stole money from the foundation. I helped raise $4 million last night. That was not my question. Tears filled her eyes with impressive speed. After everything I have done for you, one confused accusation and one performance from a maid are enough to make you doubt me? Ethan looked at her for several seconds. Someone planted evidence in Emily's locker. The hallway camera was disabled before it happened. You authorized the search. I was protecting your family. From what? From a woman who gained access to your father's financial records. Or from a woman who found something you needed hidden. Madison stepped back. I will not stand here and be treated like a criminal. Then don't leave Chicago. The warning landed harder than a shout. Ethan walked past her and called his father's private attorney. Rachel Monroe arrived at the hospital shortly after noon. She had represented Harrison for 18 years and carried a leather briefcase that seemed permanently attached to her hand. Emily entered through a private hospital entrance to avoid reporters. Ethan was waiting near the elevators. For several uncomfortable seconds, neither spoke. You should not have sent me away, Emily said. I know. You looked at documents planted in my locker and decided I might be capable of robbing sick children. I didn't have you arrested. That is not the same as believing me. Ethan accepted the accusation without defending himself. You're right. Emily had expected excuses. His agreement made it harder to remain angry, but not impossible. An apology does not repair what happened. No, but I'm hoping the truth can. They entered Harrison's room together. Harrison looked from Emily to Ethan, then gave a tired nod. Finally, he said. Rachel opened her briefcase. The blue box is missing, and the sealed instructions I prepared for Harrison are also gone. Emily explained that the envelope had disappeared during the gala. Diane's maintenance request proved Madison had ordered the locker area camera disabled under the excuse of electrical interference from event equipment. Rachel placed the document on the table. This proves planning, but it does not prove she planted the financial records. She knew what was in the evidence bag before security opened it, Ethan said. That is suspicious, not conclusive. Harrison lifted one hand. The accounts. Emily handed Rachel the list Harrison had hidden behind the photograph. The attorney read each company name carefully. Bright Future Strategy, Lakeview Family Services, and Carter Community Outreach. All three received money from the foundation. Carter Community Outreach was created using Emily's identity, Ethan said. Rachel removed her glasses. Then we need corporate registration records, bank authorizations, and server access logs. Those cannot all be fabricated without leaving a trail. Ethan called an independent forensic accounting firm that afternoon. By evening, investigators had uncovered the first layer. Carter Community Outreach had been registered through an online legal service using Emily's name, address, and social security number. The email connected to the registration looked like hers but contained one additional letter that was easy to miss. The account had been accessed repeatedly from an internet address belonging to the Whitmore Foundation's Chicago office. The bank receiving the stolen money had transferred most of it within 24 hours to two holding companies. One was connected to a luxury branding agency. The other had paid nearly $600,000 toward Madison's private debts. Emily stared at the figures. She used money meant for sick children to protect her image. Rachel corrected her. She used your identity to protect her image. The distinction mattered. Madison had not selected Emily at random. She had studied her life, discovered Noah's illness, and turned Emily's financial hardship into a believable motive. Ethan looked sick. She had access to every employee file. And you gave her authority over the foundation, Harrison said. Ethan lowered his eyes. I did. Harrison's voice remained quiet. You trusted appearance over character. That was your mistake. Do not make Emily carry it for you. Ethan looked at her. I won't. The investigation moved quickly after that. Derek Collins had approved every payment. His credentials had been used to alter grant records, create false invoices, and remove references to failed transfers. When Ethan called him, Derek claimed he was attending a conference in Denver. Airline records showed he had booked a one-way ticket to Canada. Rachel contacted federal investigators. At 8 that night, the forensic team attempted to access the Foundation's archived server. Every folder connected to the three false companies had been deleted. The deletion occurred less than an hour after Ethan confronted Madison in Harrison's study. She is destroying evidence, Rachel said. Ethan stood. We need to stop her. Not without something stronger. The server logs may show which device initiated the deletion, but if Derek used remote access, Madison will claim she knew nothing. Emily remembered Madison's confidence. She had never expected a housekeeper, an elderly man, and a frightened manager to build a case against her. But confidence made people talk. Diane said Madison entered the medication room. Emily said, what if she talked to Derek inside the house? Harrison looked toward Ethan. My desk. What about it? Ethan asked. Your mother never trusted handwritten meeting notes. She had a recording system installed after a donor denied making a promise. Rachel understood first. The study recorded conversations? Only when the switch beneath the center drawer was activated. Emily remembered the night Harrison showed her the blue box. Before opening the safe, he had reached under the desk. You turned it on. Harrison nodded. I wanted a record of what I showed Emily. Would it have continued recording after we left? She asked. Until someone turned it off. Ethan and Rachel returned to the mansion with two forensic investigators. Diane met them at the service entrance. Madison was gone. Her closet had been emptied of several suitcases. The private garage showed one vehicle missing. They entered Harrison's study and removed the center drawer. Beneath it was an old digital recorder connected to a small internal drive. The device contained several hours of audio. Most of it was ordinary. Harrison and Emily discussing the false account, Madison entering the room, Harrison ordering her to leave. Then came a recording made after the gala. The sound of the study door opening. Madison's footsteps. A man's voice over a speakerphone. Derek, you should have destroyed the Carter records weeks ago, Madison said. I told you the transfers were too large. You told me the housekeeper would never understand them. She wasn't supposed to see the box. That old man showed it to her. Now burn the envelope and wipe the archived server. Derek sounded frightened. And the medication. Stop asking questions about things you were not involved in. What if Harrison tells Ethan you changed it? No one believes a man they are preparing to declare incompetent. The recording continued. Derek asked whether Emily might go to the police. Madison laughed. With what? Her name is on the company. Her information opened the account. Her son's hospital bills give her motive. By the time she proves anything, the public will already know her as the maid who stole from sick children. No one in the room moved. Ethan stood beside his father's desk, listening to the woman he had planned to marry explain how she had used a child's illness to destroy an innocent mother. The recording ended with the sound of papers being fed into the fireplace. Rachel broke the silence. This is enough to clear Emily publicly. It also supports fraud, identity theft, evidence tampering, and possible elder abuse. Ethan stared at the recorder. She planned all of it. Emily did not answer. She was thinking about Noah seeing those headlines. She was thinking about the hospital bills Madison had treated as useful tools. She was thinking about Harrison being drugged and dismissed, until even his own son doubted him. Rachel contacted the federal investigators again. The board of the Whitmore Hope Foundation scheduled an emergency meeting for the following morning. Ethan insisted that the evidence be presented publicly. Emily was accused in front of the entire country, he said. She will be cleared the same way. Shortly before midnight, Diane found the missing blue box in the trunk of the vehicle Madison had left behind. It contained only photographs and several empty folders. The original financial records were gone. But one item remained beneath the false bottom, a second flash drive Harrison had hidden months earlier. It held copies of every suspicious transfer. The case was finally complete. Emily returned home after 1 in the morning. The reporters had mostly left, and Noah was asleep on the couch beside Linda. Emily carried him to bed, covered him with a blanket, and stood watching him breathe. Her phone rang. The number was blocked. She answered without speaking. Madison's voice came through the line. "You should have taken the blame when you had the chance." Emily stepped into the hallway. "The police have the recording." A pause followed. Then Madison laughed softly. "You think that recording gives you everything? What do you want?" "I have the original account authorization and Harrison's handwritten statement. Without them, my attorneys can still claim the recordings were taken out of context." Emily heard the sound of traffic behind her. "Where are you? That is not the question you should be asking." Madison's voice became cold. "The question is how badly you want to protect Harrison." Emily said nothing. "Come to the Whitmore Foundation office alone," Madison continued. "No Ethan, no police, no attorney. And if I refuse, the original evidence disappears, and the old man spends the rest of his life wondering whether he destroyed his own family for nothing." The line went silent for a moment. Then Madison delivered her final warning. "Come alone, Emily, or the blue box burns before sunrise." Madison's warning left Emily with only one choice: walk into the trap and make Madison believe she was still in control. Before leaving the apartment, Emily sent the call recording to Rachel Monroe and shared her live location with Ethan. She did not tell Noah where she was going. She only kissed his forehead and promised she would be home before he woke. The Whitmore Foundation office was nearly empty when Emily arrived. Most of the lights were off, and the glass walls reflected the deserted Chicago streets below. Madison was waiting inside the main conference room. The ivory gown from the gala was gone. She wore dark pants, a gray coat, and no jewelry except the engagement ring Ethan had given her. On the table sat the blue metal box, Harrison's handwritten statement, and a folder marked with Emily's name. "You came alone," Madison said, "just like you asked. Leave your phone by the door." Emily placed it on a side table, keeping the screen turned downward. Ethan, Rachel, and federal investigators were listening through a small recording device hidden inside the lining of her coat. Madison opened the folder and slid a typed confession across the table. It stated that Emily had used her access to Harrison's home to steal money from the foundation. It also claimed she had manipulated him into believing Madison was responsible. "Sign it," Madison said. Emily read the final paragraph. In exchange for her confession, the Whitmore family would supposedly cover Noah's future medical care and provide Emily with $200,000. You are offering to pay for my son's treatment with money stolen from sick children. I am offering your son a future. You used his illness to create a motive against me. And it worked. The admission came easily. Madison no longer believed she needed to hide. People saw your unpaid hospital bills, she continued. They saw a desperate single mother working inside a billionaire's home. I barely had to explain anything. They created the rest of the story themselves. Emily remained standing. Why Harrison? Because he never accepted me. He saw through you. He was an old man sitting in the way of everything Ethan and I were building. The company, the foundation, the wedding. Harrison wanted control over all of it. It was his foundation. It was dying with him. Emily looked at the blue box. And the medication? Madison's jaw tightened. I gave him enough to make him tired, nothing more. You wanted Ethan to believe his father was losing his mind. I wanted Ethan to stop letting an angry old man control our future. Emily felt the anger rise inside her. You stole millions from families whose children were in hospitals. I borrowed money from an organization that had more than it could spend. Those families would disagree. Madison stepped closer. You really believe the world works because people like you are kind? It works because people like me understand what everyone wants. Donors want photographs. Companies want good publicity. Ethan wanted a perfect wife. Harrison wanted to feel powerful again. And what did you want? Everything I was promised. No one promised you money that belonged to sick children. Madison slammed her hand against the table. Sign the confession. No. Think about Noah. I am. Emily pushed the paper back. That is why I will never teach him that survival means destroying innocent people. Madison's face hardened. Without warning, she grabbed the blue box and pulled out a metal lighter. One more word, and all of this burns. Emily did not move. Burn it. Madison stared at her. You came here for the evidence. No. I came here because people like you always speak honestly when they think the person in front of them has no power. The conference room doors opened. Ethan stepped inside with Rachel, Diane, and 2 federal investigators. Behind them, Harrison entered in his wheelchair, pale but fully alert. Madison dropped the lighter. Ethan's expression was empty of affection. We heard everything. Madison looked at Emily's coat and finally understood. You recorded me. Emily met her eyes. You recorded yourself. Madison moved toward Ethan. You do not understand. I did this for us. There is no us. The words stopped her. Ethan removed the engagement ring from her hand, not violently, but with a finality that left no room for argument. You attacked my father. You stole from his foundation. You used Emily's identity and her son's illness to frame her. I protected what we were building. You were building it out of other people's pain. One investigator collected the confession, the lighter and the blue box. The other informed Madison that she was being detained in connection with financial fraud, identity theft, evidence tampering, and suspected elder abuse. As they led her toward the door, Madison turned to Emily. You think they will ever see you as one of them? Emily looked toward Harrison. I never asked to be one of them. I only asked to be treated like a person. Madison was taken away. The following morning, the emergency meeting of the Whitmore Hope Foundation was broadcast publicly. Rachel presented the bank records, the false companies, Derek's cooperation, and Madison's recorded confession. Diane testified about the medication and the disabled cameras. Ethan stood before the same reporters who had questioned Emily's innocence and admitted his own failure. I ignored my father because listening to him would have forced me to question the woman I trusted. I doubted Emily because the evidence matched an easy stereotype. She deserved better from me and from this family. Emily's name was formally cleared. She refused to call herself a hero. I protected Harrison because he could not protect himself in that moment, she said. That should not be extraordinary. The extraordinary part is how many people watched cruelty happening before anyone moved. When the meeting ended, Harrison asked Emily to remain behind. He placed a thick employment folder on the conference table. Emily looked at it cautiously. "What is this?" Harrison smiled. "I do not want you returning to my house as a maid." For one painful second, Emily thought she was being dismissed. Then Harrison opened the folder and turned it toward her. At the top of the first page was a new title: Director of Family Outreach, Whitmore Hope Foundation. The title on the page should have felt impossible. Director of Family Outreach, Whitmore Hope Foundation. Emily read it twice before looking at Harrison. "I don't have a business degree." "You have something more useful," Harrison replied. "You know what it feels like to sit beside a sick child and wonder which bill can wait." Emily closed the folder. "I don't want a position given to me because a video went viral." "It isn't." Ethan stood quietly at the other end of the conference table. Harrison continued. "You noticed families long before the rest of us noticed you. You understand what they need because you have lived through the same fear. We can teach you budgets, reporting systems, and grant procedures. We cannot teach someone to care." Emily looked at the proposed salary and benefits. The number was more than she had ever earned. The medical insurance would cover Noah's treatment. For the first time in years, she could imagine paying rent without checking her bank balance 3 times. Still, she did not sign. "I want the board to interview me like any other candidate." Harrison smiled. "I expected you to say that. And if I am hired, I want authority to build real programs, not just appear in photographs. That is exactly why I chose you." Ethan moved closer. "I also want you to know that you do not owe this family forgiveness." Emily met his eyes. "No, I don't." He accepted the answer. "But I hope I can earn your trust again. That will take time." "I understand." For once, Ethan did not try to solve the damage with money or a promise. He simply allowed the truth to remain uncomfortable. 3 weeks later, after a formal interview with the board and 2 independent nonprofit advisors, Emily accepted the position. Her first days were overwhelming. She had to learn grant compliance, hospital partnerships, and financial reporting. She attended evening classes in nonprofit management, while Noah completed his homework beside her at the kitchen table. Some board members doubted her. One asked whether personal experience was enough to manage a large program. Emily answered by placing a list of rejected families in front of him. These parents were denied because they missed one document or failed to answer one email while sitting in an intensive care unit. A program can follow every rule and still fail the people it was created to help. The room became silent. Harrison, attending by video from his home, smiled without saying a word. Emily's first proposal became the Family Bridge program. It provided emergency rent, transportation, food assistance, and childcare for parents whose children were receiving long-term medical treatment. She insisted that the application be simple. No parent should need a lawyer to ask for grocery money while their child is in surgery, she told the board. Within 6 months, the program had helped more than 300 families across Illinois. One mother used a grant to keep her apartment while her son received a bone marrow transplant. Another family received gas cards for a 6-hour weekly drive to a children's hospital. Emily also created a small fund for ordinary things people often forgot: birthday cakes, winter coats, and sports equipment for siblings whose lives had been placed on hold. On the shelf in her office, she kept Noah's old baseball cleats. They reminded her that kindness did not always have to be dramatic. Sometimes it was simply noticing what another person needed and refusing to make them feel ashamed for needing it. Noah's health improved, his doctors adjusted his treatment, and for the first time he was cleared to play an entire baseball season. Harrison attended the opening game in his wheelchair, wearing a Cubs cap Noah had chosen for him. When Noah hit his first double, Harrison cheered so loudly that the parents around him turned and laughed. "You're embarrassing me," Noah told him afterward. "I have waited 76 years to embarrass a grandson," Harrison replied. Noah looked at Emily. "Can I call him Grandpa Harrison?" Harrison's expression softened before Emily could answer. "I would be honored." His own health also began to improve. He returned to physical therapy with new determination and started attending foundation meetings again. He could stand for short periods with the help of a walker. Ethan changed as well. He created an independent oversight committee for the foundation and required every executive in the company to complete workplace ethics training. Employees were given a confidential way to report mistreatment without fear of losing their jobs. Diane was promoted to Director of Household Operations. She later admitted that speaking against Madison had frightened her more than anything she had done in 21 years. Emily told her courage was not the absence of fear. It is deciding that silence has become more expensive. Derek Collins pleaded guilty and agreed to return the money he had helped steal. Madison faced multiple federal charges. Her attorneys argued that pressure and ambition had affected her judgment, but the recordings made one fact impossible to deny. She had known exactly whose lives she was using. The stolen funds were eventually recovered through seized accounts and property. Emily did not celebrate Madison's downfall. Consequences were necessary, but she understood that justice was not the same as revenge. 1 year after the gala, the Whitmore family held another event in the same ballroom. This time there were no celebrity photographers, no towering floral displays, and no attempt to impress 500 strangers. The guests were families helped by the foundation, hospital workers, employees and volunteers. Emily stood near the stage, with Noah beside her. Ethan remained a respectful distance away, though over the previous year, a quiet friendship had grown between them. They had shared coffee after meetings. He had attended Noah's baseball games. He had listened when Emily spoke, instead of waiting for his chance to answer. Neither of them rushed to name what was developing. Trust, Emily had learned, was not rebuilt through one dramatic apology. It returned through small, consistent choices. Harrison walked toward the microphone with the help of his frame. The room rose to applaud, but he raised one hand. "A year ago," he began, "I sat in this room surrounded by wealth and discovered how poor my family had become." The guests fell silent. "We had money, influence, and a famous name, but we had stopped seeing the people standing closest to us." He looked at Emily. One woman changed that, not because she wanted recognition and not because she expected a reward. She acted because someone needed protection. Emily lowered her eyes, feeling Noah take her hand. Harrison continued, "But the most important thing about Emily Carter is not what she did when hundreds of cameras were recording. It is what she does every day when no one is watching." Behind him, a screen displayed photographs of families helped by the Family Bridge program. "Real wealth is not measured by how many people serve you," Harrison said. "It is measured by how many people are safer because you chose to notice them." The room stood again. This time, Emily allowed herself to accept the applause. She was no longer the invisible woman carrying trays through a mansion. She was a mother, a leader, and the person Harrison had believed she could become before she believed it herself. Ethan leaned toward Noah. "Your mom changed this whole family." Noah shook his head. "She was already like this. You just finally noticed." Ethan smiled. "You're right." Emily heard him and looked across the room. No grand promise passed between them, only understanding. For now, that was enough. Because the greatest change in Emily's life had not been the salary, the office, or the attention. It was waking each morning knowing she no longer had to choose between survival and purpose. And the greatest lesson the Whitmore family learned was simple. Sometimes the person with the least power in the room is the only one strong enough to do what is right. If Emily's story reminded you that kindness, dignity, and courage still matter, press 1 in the comments. If this story did not bring you value, press 0 and tell us what we can improve. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who believes every person deserves to be seen. Thank you for watching until the end, and we'll see you in the next story.